All right, so as with everything, we always want to start with our objective. And so we are going to use the objective and the layout of this cluster to kind of walk you through the process of building an assessments throughout each chunk of the lesson. So our objective today is by the end of cluster, teachers will be able to ensure that each segment of the lesson includes an appropriate assessment to gather evidence of mastery. So I always want to start with what are the parts of my lesson because I'm going to build an assessment to each of those chunks. So we're going to use the cluster that we did today as a means so that you have a personal connection and understanding of it, but this can be applied to any lesson that's being taught. So the parts of my lesson are a warm-up. I wanted a productive group brainstorm. So productive group is an idea of I want my kids working together or my teachers working together to brainstorm some ideas. And then the video model, the development using that video model, and then the exit ticket. And I've labeled those beginning, middle, and end. Alright, so now I'm going to take each of these chunks and I'm going to walk them through these series of 3 questions to build in and ensure that I'm gathering evidence throughout the lesson towards mastery before I move on to the next piece. So the first question is there a place where I need to pulse check before moving on? So when we say pulse check, we're just talking about I just need to take a break and see if the kids are picking up what I'm giving them or if they're following before I move on to the next chunk to make sure that we're progressing towards mastery. So I may not be assessing total mastery every point in the lesson, but I'm assessing towards mastery throughout the lesson. Alright, so in the warm-up, how am I going to pulse check before moving on? Well, I want to see where the teachers are in their knowledge of assessments before I walk them through the process of building assessments into lesson chunks. So basically, I want to make sure you understand what assessment is before I ask you to use assessment or build it into your lesson. So how am I going to assess teachers? Well, we decided to do a Kahoot. This is an informal and quick activity while still engaging the participants. And I want to step out really quickly the difference between formal and informal assessment. So informal assessment is my assessment towards mastery. So it's kind of those baby steps along the way. As I'm talking about my sub-objectives, I might be assessing those. And then formal is my assessment of mastery. So it's that culminating piece where I'm ready to make sure that you understand and gather all that evidence. And then how will I communicate mastery to the students and push them further? So as we know with Kahoot, the results will show up on the screen after each question, and I can use my academic feedback and discussion to address misconceptions and reinforce understanding. So essentially, how am I going to ensure that the students are clear on what the understanding is, and then what am I going to do if students have misconceptions? Well, this gives me an opportunity to address that before moving on. Alright, so for the second chunk of my lesson, which is the productive group brainstorm, which is still part of the beginning, how is this a place to pulse check? Well, I have now established what assessment is in the previous chunk, but now I want to ensure that all teachers have a clear understanding of the different types of assessments that they can use in their classroom. So the process that I'm going to use is an all-right round robin, but also the questioning. The all-right round robin is just the structure that I'm using, but really how I'm assessing is my use of questions as the teachers are engaging in that activity. And I just want to step out really quickly. Questioning is a form of assessment. It's informal, obviously, and I use what the students give me to guide my instruction. So as I'm circulating during that activity, I'm going to be questioning teachers to make sure that we're all understanding at the same level, and that's going to guide the whole group discussion that we use after that structure is completed. So stepping back in, how then will I communicate mastery to the students and push them further? Well, like I said, during the small group activity, I will have collected evidence through my use of questioning, and I will highlight that during the whole group. I'll provide feedback that's based on the list of structures that's collected, and then also I have a list of structures that can be used for assessment, and so if my group of teachers don't bring any of those up, I will be filling in with anything that was missed. Alright, so my third chunk is the video model. This is the middle part of my lesson. And how is this a place where I need to pulse check? Well, I need to ensure that the model is transferring to the teachers before they try to apply it for themselves. So essentially, I need to make sure that what I'm saying is transferring to you. So how will I assess? Normally, if it's a live model, I'm going to do my step outs and I'm going to ask you, what did I do and why did I do it? However, with a video, that's obviously impossible. So through the use of Zaption, which is the website that you're working through right now, it is an informal assessment, but I can build in those interactions into the video to ensure that what is being presented is transferring to you. So how will I communicate mastery to the students? The data will be collected to inform instructional decisions made during the development time. So when I'm looking at the way that the teachers respond to those slides and the feedback that they're giving me, that's going to inform who I'm going to talk to during development time and maybe what we're going to talk about. Alright, so the development time is the opportunity for teachers to demonstrate mastery of the new learning. So this is obviously, how am I going to assess? This is my formal assessment. This is my opportunity to see how the teachers fill out the development sheet. Has the model or the new learning transferred to them in their understanding of collecting assessment data throughout the lesson? So how will I communicate mastery? The data will be used to inform our coaching conversations. So if I see a teacher that's struggling, then that data will help me decide what we're going to talk about in our coaching conversation. Or if I see a teacher who's really owning this or already does this very consistently, I'm going to come up with ways to press that teacher further to kind of bump their ability to collect data throughout the lesson. And lastly, the exit ticket or the end. How am I going to pulse check before moving on? Obviously, this is the end of the lesson, but it is going to inform our coaching conversation. So even though this is a reflection, I used to think, now I think, it can also be used as an assessment. And in the second question, how will I assess, is I'm formally assessing the teacher's thoughts on assessment based on what they put assessment is. So the now I think piece. I'm going to use that in the last question to inform the coaching conversations. And this is a process that you can go through to ensure that every segment of your lesson includes an appropriate assessment in order to gather evidence of mastery as you move through the lesson.